So the gentleman I'm joined by today has had three huge releases, and in all three of the projects he's done, two of them are very grey shaded characters, and one of them is a very one which we can look at as redemption and a very, good example of redemption. So Siddhant Karnick, it's so wonderful to have you on filmishilmy.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Anuj. I'm happy to be here.
Right. Let's get straight into the film that's been the talk of the town, which is, of course, Animal. Your role in that was pretty crucial, actually, and I think if we look at it, it's quite a it's a very again quite a dark shaded character amidst a lot of darkness in the film itself. So I think for you to play Varun, someone who is seemingly very noble and all of that, but then of course behind the scenes has very dark and sinister intentions. How challenging was it for you to play a rather uh, conflicted and a very a character that masks things a lot?
I honestly love playing grayer, and layered shades. I don't like the two-dimensional goody two-shoes hero-like thing. I'd rather be playing the negative roles, and because there's far more layers in there to play around with. And Varun, the character in Animal, really gave me an opportunity to play a lot of layers, some expected, some very unexpected. Um, and I personally really vibe and resonate with those because we're all gray shades, aren't we? We're not, Anuj isn't just a great guy looking good, giving a great interview. There's so many other things to Anuj. And so for myself, so to play that characters which are more real and gray shaded, I personally really resonate with that a lot.
Mhm.
It's
Now,
more fun.
yeah, I can imagine. I mean, there's obviously been a lot of conversation about the film. I'm sure you've been seeing the social media reactions that are coming in. Of course, there are the critics or the sort of naysayers who have obviously opposed the film. They've, found it very triggering and very gory. Did you actually anticipate that reaction before you did the film?
Of course, it's a Sandeep Reddy Vanga film, man. He right in the one of the interviews in Kabir Singh, he said he told all the critics, if you think this was violent, you haven't seen anything yet, and he just set it up for what Animal's going to be about. It like so. Yes, one was prepared for all that is coming our way, but I'd just like to also say that at the end of the day, it's a movie. Very clearly, the censor also is saying it's a fictional story. We, as artists, as actors, as storytellers, as directors, writers, we're telling the story of these characters in this world, right?
Mm.
It's by no means a social awareness campaign. We're not telling you how a husband should be with his wife. This is a movie. Enjoy it as a film and not anything more than that.
Sure, sure. I think obviously because Animal it's a very interesting character study. I think Ranbir's character is very much in a way perhaps our Joker, in Indian cinema. And I think there's so much layers and a lot to extrapolate from him, and of course the absolute violence and gore. But I think I would love to know about your experience of being a part of that, because I've never really understood how a violent scene is actually picturized. Because obviously, when you watch it on screen, it's like the final product. But when you're actually shooting it,
Right.
how does one actually bring out that shock value when you are having to enact something which you're probably expecting anyway?
So, okay, so to break it down, of course, you have the fight masters and the choreography done because safety is of absolute importance, especially when you're working with an A-lister like Ranbir. Everyone's very concerned because he's an asset, right? If something is to happen to him on set, there is a lot of money at stake. Uh, so, of course, when you do these action sequences, there is a lot of pressure in making sure that not only do we get it right, but every part of safety is adhered to. And this is where I'd really like to, okay, spoiler alert, if you could give a
Yeah,
spoiler
sure,
alert
sure,
here.
sure.
Right, there's a scene in the film where Ranbir's character is kind of choking me, right? And it's a really intense scene. In fact, it was the first scene with Sandeep Reddy Vanga expressed to me when I went to meet him about the film and he told me of the film. So it was very clear in Sandeep sir's head how he wanted to play it. And when it came to D-Day, when we were, rehearsing this chokehold. Man, Ranbir is such a pro. Yeah, the fact that he was aware of the technique of choking because he's done so much of action before.
Hmm.
Um, uh, as actors, and I know many actors who get carried away with in a way to try to and don't act. They just get carried away, which I think is unprofessional of them. A lot of senior actors also get carried away, and for them, they kind of they're the stars. You can't really say anything, to be very honest, but it shows, it reflects. But to give an example of Ranbir, he knew the technique of choking, which is not straight but on the side, and making it kind of look real by pressing in the right spots, so that on camera it looks real. And at the same time, to me, as the core actor who's being choked, I'm absolutely fine and healthy. So there is a lot of it's the craft of cinema and filmmaking, I think, that needs and gives the credit for.
Mhm.
Um, Absolutely adore and love.
Amazing. Yeah, no, for sure. And I think also, I mean, the way I saw it as well, is that I mean, I felt very disgusted by the film for the right reasons because it's supposed to do that, right? Like, I mean, when you see your character, when you see Ranbir's character, there's a sense of obviously um the sense of alpha dominance that I think both of the characters have, right? And I think that, the misogyny that you see in both of the characters, like there's one scene again where your on-screen partner Reed, the character Reed, where she's literally watching the news and she's looking at you. You have a cigarette and you just literally fling it at her. I mean, that aggression was, I mean, it made me feel so appalled by what we're seeing. Of course, with Ranbir's character, we hadn't seen so much of that at that point yet. But again, when you're having to play someone so mentally effed up, I mean, I mean, can an actor ever be prepared emotionally or mentally for playing someone who is so ethically and morally challenged?
This is where the training comes in again. You switch on, you switch off. You don't bring that psyche back home. You don't bring that into your personal life with your friends and family. That's when actors go psychotic, where a lot of I mean, you mentioned the Joker, Heath Ledger. I mean, at some point he lost the plot, right? That's why shit went down. He indulged himself too much into the craft that he lost a sense of reality, and did what he had to do. God, you know, bless his soul. But we need to, as professionals, because it can get very tempting to go dark, right? It can get very tempting, especially with that. All right. So, as somebody who's come from the outside and where I do not have that many opportunities, and any opportunity I get, I want to make the most of, right? It is but natural that I'd want to give my 175% to it, right? And within that, I can also get very unhealthy about it, yes? But that is where 20 years of training for me has come to help me cut off from that psyche of Varun or even Anik from Maiden Heaven, to kind of distance myself from the character that I'm playing and keep that for the staging area and bring my sanity back to who I am.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very interesting because I think uh the whole conversation on morals and ethical sort of values in our society has really given surface. And I think if a film can achieve that, I think that's definitely a win of the movie for sure, because I think it's important to have these conversations. Like, of course, I mean, I can understand why there is obviously a big section which obviously, criticizes it as well, because I can understand that, the log to pagal hote hi hai, and they obviously get easily influenced by, things easily. But then, can a film necessarily be accountable for trying to restore mental health and, well-being, per se? Because obviously this is not a therapy session, like a professional therapy session per se, right? Do you know what I'm saying? So, where do you stand on that when you see these conflicted views?
It's very simple. We're making a film. It's a fictional film. We're not making a social awareness campaign advertisement, right? We're not saying this is how you should be. This is just a movie, and keep it at that. If people draw parallels from it and uh, replicate some of the behaviors shown by the character, I still don't think that's our responsibility. That's just that person being triggered by something. It could be cinema, it could be that film, it could be something else that's triggering him. We are not teaching them how to be and how to live. No, it's very explicitly given that all characters are fictitious and bearing no resemblance. And no, none of us, even Ranbir or me, say, "Oh, you've got to be like Vijay, or you've got to be like." We're not saying that. We're just being true to our art and craft. My duty as an artist is to make you feel. My duty as a good artist is to make you feel intensely. Good or bad, the way you respond to it, that's not my responsibility.
Yeah, of course, exactly. I mean, how much, there's only a certain amount of accountability one can take with these things, right? And I agree with you there completely. In fact, Ranbir has even gone on record many times saying that it is a triggering film. So, I mean, the warnings have definitely been given for sure.
Precisely, it's an A film. He has in the I respect him so much because in a time when everybody, especially at his level, is facing the pressures to get the biggest sales, biggest box office turnovers is what determines his career. At a time like this, he's telling people, warning them that hey, if you get triggered easily, don't watch this film.
Hmm.
And how much more am I supposed, as is an actor, supposed to say beyond that? Yeah? We
Exactly.
also have a duty towards our craft. We have a duty towards the story we want to tell. There is just that much of balance that we can do.
And art, like I said in my review as well, art has many purposes, and one of those purposes is, of course, to repulse and to revolt. And boy, this does both those aspects. और वो भी
Yeah.
छप्पड़ फाड़ के. So
Yeah. And it's cool that you'd say this as well because, again, you mentioned Made in Heaven and the character I played over there. The other thing to it, which not many people know, is that I got a lot of DMs on social media after I played that character, right? And two things are very. One of the things really got to me was this guy. He texted me and he says, "Why are you showing domestic violence where it's only about the guy doing wrong to the girl? There is domestic violence in partners where the man is being beaten up as well."
yeah,
Right? It is true. It's not just the male onto the female. It is just a troubled, toxic relationship. That's what Made in Heaven's episode spoke about.
mm,
Um, and that was, yeah. I mean, there is violence or there is this passive aggressiveness which happens in all relationships. Doesn't matter if it's the guy to the girl or the girl to the guy, right?
mm,
And our job as artists is just to bring that out. The other set of DMs I got was again from guys saying and admitting that watching your character, of course, not to the extent that you played it at, but the way you played it, we realized we were being passively aggressive to our partners without even being conscious of it.
mm,
The way you played it made me realize that oh, what I'm doing isn't right, and I think that's huge.
yeah.
uh, that's a big thing as an actor to make somebody realize and feel.
Sure. I mean, Made in Heaven, I would love to talk about that actually, because again, it's quite ironic because obviously आपकी शादी हो रखी है, but then this whole domestic violence is a very subliminal theme to that. And I think it was very, very fascinating to see perhaps the irony and the sort of juxtaposition of what the wedding planners were trying to achieve and what's actually happening between the couple. Again, when you were playing this character, I'm sure you had training as well for that. But what was your mindset at that point, shooting for Made in Heaven? Because I'm sure was this before Animal as well, specifically?
Yes, this was before Animal. Yeah, yeah. This was during Adipurush when I was shooting that. I was shooting Maiden and Adipurush at the same time. Um, what was really cool is I love playing I wouldn't say, yeah, I mean, negative roles or bad shades, whatever you want, label you want to give it. But the difference between the two, because even in Animal with Varun, he plays an abusive husband. In Made in Heaven, again, I'm playing an abusive husband or a fiance. And the difference in the two that I took the approach for was that Anik in Made in Heaven was not an evil man. I didn't wish to play him an evil man. He was a troubled man. right? And that troubled man got triggered and reacted in ways which he couldn't control. And it was important for that last breakdown scene when Anik really lets go and apologizes and just, you feel for the guy then. If it's a negative villainous guy, you don't feel for that villain. Here you feel for this troubled man who doesn't know how to figure. So you kind of also understand why Adhira, Ronald's character, kind of gets him back and they get married, right? There's shit that happens, but couples try to figure it out. Unfortunately, in Made in Heaven, Anik's character didn't have a resolution. That was a perfect point for him to may have opened up, like he said, I need help. Maybe gone to therapy, got himself better, and they might have had a great relationship. That wasn't the story though, but that could have been one of the outcomes of it, right? And I love playing shades like those, man. It's so good to get into the psyche of these guys.
Yeah, I was going to say this because I mean, my earliest memory of you was in Mahi Way. I think like initially the way your character was, you were obviously very desirable, and uh, obviously, I mean, at that point when I watched your character, it almost felt like you led Mahi on, and I think that's what really made me to kind of resent you quite a lot, actually, afterwards in the show. Then, of course, you know, the main character came in, and then obviously the show proceeds as the way it does. But why do you think, directors and producers approach you with these sort of negative and gray strands? I mean, I know it's probably difficult for you to say because that just depends on what their briefs are, but what do you think it is about maybe your craft that you've done that's really had an impact on them?
I think, thank you for citing that. I really do appreciate it. But I am aware of what my unique selling point as an artist, as an actor is that I can play the nuances and play the layers. I can appear to be good and then come out differently later, or I can play the bad and play the layers without it getting too bad or too worse. I think so. I think that's what they feel. Plus, I don't have a face that looks kind of villainous. And then if it's coupled with a screenplay where it turns, shit gets real and like, oh crap. So I think that might have also something to do with it.
Yeah,
Um,
possibly.
yeah, it's even more hard hitting when somebody who conventionally looks attractive and is a good guy turns out to be, like an I don't know, I'm thinking like a really bad
It's
guy.
like it's like Kabir Bedi and Khoon Bari Maang, right?
Exactly.
If
The
you look at
beard helps, I guess.
yeah, exactly. No, I think it's very fascinating. I think the good thing about Made in Heaven, especially you and Runal, you both began as actors on television, but you've had such an amazing trajectory, I think, in cinema generally as well. Uh, when you look back at your TV journey as well, I mean, I've not seen all of your stuff actually. I do apologize for that, but from what I have seen, you've had some very effective roles, and that too as leads in some of them as well. For you as an artist to really, uh, how important is it for you to have been patient all of these years and not just go ahead with roles that are offered to you for the sake of it? How difficult has it been?
That's a fantastic question, Anuj. Thank you so much for asking. Um, it's been about 20 years I've been an actor and in this industry. And, it's about this time that people were just starting off, come and ask for advice or, अरे मेरा पोता का ये लड़का आ रहा है इंडस्ट्री में बॉम्बे में आया है इसको थोड़ा एडवाइस दे दो it's that kind of a thing. And when I go to help them, because I had people helping me out when I started off. um, so two things I've realized, and I always tell them is if you want to stick around in this industry or any industry which is of a freelance nature, um, what is very important, two qualities to have is patience and perseverance. Um, and it's not even that the patience is something, oh, I'm patient and it's carry on. No, it's a constant work in progress. It's you're constantly battling out those insecurities, those doubts, those rejections, those even when things are going good, suddenly nothing happens because of things beyond your control. it's still very important to be patient and to persevere. How? How to be patient and how to persevere? You got to find your own way. You know, I would love to deconstruct the way I got it, but frankly and honestly, I have to admit I haven't nailed it yet. I still get impatient. I still sometimes lose my drive, and want to just say, chuck it, like, you know, बहुत हो गया. But चलो एक और दिन, one day at a time.
हाँ, बट वो क्या एक गाइडिंग फोर्स है आपकी जिंदगी में जो आपको हमेशा मोटिवेट करती रहती है?
This is hypothesis I've been trying to work out, and I think it's true. Every time I've got about 4,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees left in my bank account, just that time when shit's about to get real and, there's no money, because that's a big factor on success, and you can carry on in this unpredictable life or career where you don't know where the next paycheck is coming from. You know, invariably from somewhere or the other, some little gig works out and suddenly you get money in your account. And it's like the universe is giving you that little encouragement step by step to carry on. And I take those as signs. I have to have a higher faith in it than just in myself, because as much as all these motivational talks we hear of people saying, and Denzel Washington and all these guys, they have these motivational speeches on YouTube which keep coming around. I listen to those. They're very motivating, but at the same time, there is a belief in the higher self. And I don't speak about God over here or religion, because I'm not religious. But I believe in myself, but also believe in the universe, and believe in that I've given myself as an artist completely, and that art will somehow or the other help me to just carry on. It might not, it would challenge the way I define comfort, but it will always push me through to the next step, enough to take the next step forward. और आई गेस ऐसे ही करते करते 20 साल हो गए, और उम्मीद है कि और 20 साल हो जाएंगे.
जी, बट इट्स वंडरफुल जिस तरह से आपने अपने जो एक 20 साल की जो जर्नी है, ग्रोथ भी बहुत ज़्यादा हुआ है एक्चुअली। हम अक्सर कभी ये सोचते नहीं है कि हमारे ज़िंदगी में ग्रोथ हुई है, until we actually look back and pinpoint certain incidents and we look back at the body of work that one has done, it makes you realize you've come a long way. Do you think Animal has kind of been that moment for you?
It's too soon to say so, but I'd like to reflect something. A very close friend and excellent professional in our industry. Her name is Nandini Shrikant. She's a casting director. She does a lot of casting work for Excel Entertainment and a whole bunch of things. And she's cast me a couple of times in some great projects as well. She once told us, her husband and I, who's also an actor, she said, the career that we are in is like a lottery system. ओके, 1 साल में, 2 साल में, या फिर 20 साल लग जाएंगे वो लॉटरी लगने, पर एक ऐसा मौका आएगा, एक ऐसा एक प्रोजेक्ट आएगा जो तुम्हारे लिए लॉटरी होगी, एंड देयर विल बी एन एक्सपोनेंशियल ग्रोथ इन योर करियर, right? And it has happened with a lot of people, especially character artists, from Nawazuddin Siddiqui to Boman Irani to a whole bunch of the new generation of people, Vijay Varma coming in, so this that one project which becomes a lottery, and boom, there's this exponential growth in the career. The struggle or the journey still remains challenging. That will always be there. That's never going to go. But it just gets a little easier to get more work. I want to believe, I hope and pray to all the gods that we have that this is that project for me, which is my lottery. But having said that as well, I'm still prepared to, even if this is not my lottery, I'll still be working. I'll still be trying. I'll still persevere.
That's so beautiful to hear. I think anyone who is aspiring to become an actor, I think hearing this will definitely feel quite motivated. The irony here, hearing this. But no, you're right, and I think it's been a very interesting year as well because even if we look at big blockbusters like Rocky or Rani Ki Prem Kahani, for example, you've had Shiti Jog, Anjali again, who of course have been very notable and done some very prominent work on Indian television. But suddenly their exposure on a film like this scale has really brought eyeballs to them as actors. People are starting to realize कि अरे यार ये भी तो actor है. Because I feel like especially actors who have done stints on television have suffered this whole otherization, I mean, especially, I mean, even though now it's kind of changing because of OTT, but there's still that sense of, but he's a TV actor. You can either do TV or film. And I think it's almost a baggage that the system per se has created as well. Would you agree with that?
That's a, yes, that's a very, again, a very good point you brought up, Anuj. I think it needs to start with considering us as actors, period. Don't label us as TV actors, theater actors, film actors. We are actors who do different mediums, right? I swear to God, and I know I've 14 years of TV I've done, every actor in television, every technician in television, all of us aspire to do films, right? But we are not getting the opportunity to do that. So we have to make ends meet. And within that, we find work in television, which is beautiful. There are so many advantages to doing. TV today is still the quickest way for fame and money.
Yeah.
It is. Film still takes so long. A year and a half might go and it might boom completely and flop and you're stuck. So that's one part. The second part I feel is not just the industry, but the way I respond to it, right? I need to approach, if I'm making that transition or not transition, but choosing to do TV for some time and then film and then theater, then television again. I need to change the way I respond to it. I need to enter that new arena without a chip on my shoulder. A lot of the times I carry that baggage where nobody else has said anything, but I feel so because I may carry that insecurity along with me. So it first needs to stop from here, from myself. Only then I can expect the world to change from the outside.
It makes complete sense with what you're saying. I mean, even if you look at Priyanka Chopra, because I know she's gone on record so many times to say even though she was such a huge heart star. I mean, she's such a huge name in India. For then her to make that Hollywood transition per se, she had to also begin from ground zero. She had to start from square one again. So it's interesting, isn't it? How literally nothing is ever constant in this industry. It's always forever changing. But do you know, actually, Sid, I've also noticed that अक्सर जब मैं क्वेश्चन पूछता हूँ जब एक क्रिएटर बनाने की कोशिश करता है फॉर डिफरेंट मीडियम्स मेरा ये मानना है कि एक्चुअली ऑडियंसेस अलग है नेटफ्लिक्स के लिए या एक ओटीटी प्लेटफॉर्म के लिए और एक सिनेमा के लिए
Massive difference. It's in the nature of the medium that you're consuming it in, right? When I'm watching a movie in a cinema, it's blacked out. The environment is set that I'm focused over there and watching it. Massive visuals, massive sound, darkened room. Everybody is quiet and listening as a collective. Whereas on OTT, when I'm watching something on an iPad, not only the content that I'm watching suddenly gets interrupted by a notification, right? I have to compete with that notification. I write as well. When I'm writing for OTT or something like that, I got to have my beats figured out such that even if a notification comes, that man will carry on watching my content. It's the challenge of the medium. There's nothing I can do but accept it and write according to it.
mm-hmm.
And anything like I went Made in Heaven when I watched it at the screening. They had the screening at PVR, and that was great. It felt film-like. Everything from production, everything about sound design, it gets enhanced with that kind of technical audio system and visual backup as well. It was far better watching Made in Heaven in a big screen than it was watching it at my home as an immersive experience. But that's just the challenge we have to face, man. There's no point complaining about it. We might as well adapt to how things are.
Sure. Speaking of challenge, I want to go back to Animal. I think the sort of ethically challenged roles that you have done. I think I'm sure एक छाप तो पड़ ही जाती है ना एक actor पे. I mean, not that you consciously try to become that person, but I'm sure there is obviously it changes you, right? The way you were perhaps before playing this role because you've done so much, you've given so much of your personal space as well to that because it is a very human career when you are playing an actor. But what has it really taught you about uh, the so-called villains of our society and maybe, uh, you know, of what people expect an actual man to be, especially when it comes to the gender politics and the stereotypes of what masculinity is, because Animal obviously addresses that quite a lot too.
You're very right in observing that the kind of characters we play has an effect on our personal life, right? But what is great, and this I learned in theater, is acting is therapeutic, right? It's actually reverse of what you addressed. Playing a villainous character on screen doesn't make me villainous in real life. In fact, the villainousness I might have in my real life, I'm able to channelize it and put it out into this character that I'm playing and get it out of my system. And invariably, that allows me to heal myself better. There is a reason why I really believe, again, this is a hypothesis I'm trying to figure out, but if you look at some of the greatest villains who only played villainous roles, right? They were the coolest cats. They were the coolest, good-natured human beings in real life.
Hmm.
Amrish Puri is a fantastic example of that. You know, he was such a nice man, and it's because acting allows us to channelize the negative emotions and put it outside, and therefore allows us to heal within. So you're very right in citing that fact, but actually the reverse happens for me. The more villainous roles I play, the better I become because I'm able to just get it out of my system. Yeah.
So that's the learning you get from it, right? Because it kind of teaches you the dark side and it teaches you how not to basically become that, right? So that's the sort of learning you get, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Amazing. That's amazing. Well, I think, look, Siddhant, you've had such a great career so far. And honestly, I think, like we mentioned as well, the growth you've had is definitely inspiring. Animal's obviously doing very well. What would you say, what would you say is the type of character that you would, you are very eager to play, but you've not been approached for that yet? And how do you think we can perhaps see that in any of your upcoming projects?
I would love to play the action comedy zone. That's I've done 3 years of improv comedy. There's a lot of training for comedy and situational comedy that I've worked on, which I haven't got an opportunity, and I play that a lot in theater, but I haven't got an opportunity to play that on cinema. So I'm hopeful that I get cast in something which is situational comedy, and because I'm a fitness and flexibility teacher, and physically I've always been very active. I'd love to do a action comedy. I think that's a genre that I would love to. I'd love to do, man. And then let's see how people react out of that.
Yeah, and again, I think with a lot of this is very interesting again because I feel like we're talking about fitness, and I think especially someone who has a chiseled body like yourself, a lot of the times where I've seen the representations of this, it's either actually been in two divisions. Number one, they're villains, or number two, they're basically in comedic roles, just as side characters who are basically there to, perhaps play on the insecurity of the main hero or the actress, and then that's about it. There's never been an actual humanized emotional story about people who are very much into fitness, who have these chiseled bodies, and there's a lot more to them. So, I mean, again, I just wanted to throw this thought out to you and, see what you thought about that representation as well, because I'm sure you've gone through that kind of as well in your career as well.
It's awesome that you would say so, and yeah, that you're very correct in citing that. Damn, Anuj, you're very good, man. I'm really enjoying this interview. Uh,
Thank you.
uh, the first 10, 15 years of my career went into making a six-pack ab because I was told, "Hey, तेरे को acting करनी है, you need to have a six-pack." There was no relevance. It was more of a dikhawa. Once I got comfortable with the fact that it's not a dikhawa for me, I might still have it. It's what I do with that six-pack, right? And this is where theater again helped me because at the end of it, my body is a tool. I use this tool as a medium to express what I'm going through. So the fitness then became more about keeping myself at such a fine-tuned tool that I can portray anything, irrespective of if I have a chiseled body inside or not. That helps me in endurance, that helps me to shoot 14, 18 hours. It helps me so much more than just what it looks like. So very, very well you said, if there is a character that comes out whose body happens to be incidental to what he's doing, I think that'll be an interesting take and
Yeah.
something cool to, you know. Yeah.
Well, let's hope any producers or directors or storytellers watching this interview take some notes and can write something like that. Because I think it'll be a very interesting piece of cinema for sure. You know,
Yeah,
I would love to
I'd
see.
love to do that. I'd love to be part of something.
Absolutely, no, for sure. But look, Sid, it's been so wonderful to have you on filmishilmy.com. Honestly, congratulations on such a great body of work, and let's hope and pray that this continues even more exponentially in the upcoming future as well.
Thank you, Anuj. And I just like to say I really appreciate the chain of questions, the sensitivity in the answer, in asking the right kind of questions, the research that you've done in citing my previous work and understanding my graph. You obviously put in a lot of time. Even if it's not as a fan, you might have watched it, but still gone back and collected all that data. This is a really good interview, and to everyone who's watching, please a big hats off to Anuj for doing such a great job and asking such wonderful questions. Thank
Oh,
you, Anuj.
I don't know how to react to that, honestly. This is so kind. I mean, this is the most lovely thing I've heard any of our guests actually say. So I'm really deeply honored. So thank you so much, Sid. I'm
You
so glad.
deserve it, my friend. You deserve it. Carry on.
Thank you, thank you. Well, thanks to Animal, this was possible. So I'm really glad that चलो एक जरिया बन गया, हमारी बातचीत करने का. So I'm glad that the stars aligned and we could make this happen. Great.
Likewise. I look forward to the next one.
Definitely, for sure, for sure. Thanks, Sid. Thank you so much.